Welcome, everyone. My name is Jacob. Thank you for joining me. This is Hunt Detail, and it is November 11th. Hope your rut is going well, and hope you're having a lot of fun and getting after it. I know this time of year can be both very frustrating and exciting at the same time. I have been going really, really hard and have decided to take a bit of a break just to sort of catch my breath and then sort of reconnect a little bit with my family. And I intend on getting after it later this week. Again, I have some other commitments, unfortunately, but really hope to start really getting after it again real soon. And I know this feed is new, and I want to both apologize and say thank you for those of you that are seeing all of these episodes drop. They are, if you're listening to those episodes, you hear me talking about, the month of April or whatever. These are older episodes that I have put onto this feed because I've switched from an old feed, which when I was on Sportsman's Empire, and I've left that group. Nothing malicious there. Just decided to do come back to doing my own independent podcast. And so I apologize if I'm sort of clogging up your feed with old episodes. Personally, I would have liked to just release them all in order, but unfortunately, it doesn't allow me to really do that. So thank you if you are listening to those and maybe you've discovered those. I think going forward for the rest of this hunting season, you're just going to see these weekly episodes every Tuesday or Wednesday. So I do want to let you know that the giveaway winner for this week was Jordan. Jordan DM'd me on Instagram the word detail, and he has won some Wasatch Steak seasoning. I'll send that out in December. Congratulations, Jordan. And anybody that's listening, all you have to do is go on Instagram, message me the word detail, and you're going to be entered to win. And even if you don't get drawn for the Wasatch seasoning, you are going to get something. And so do that now. Hunt Detail, message me the word detail, and you're in. And I assure you, you're going to get something from me as a thank you and as a congratulations as being part of this giveaway. Now, if you use the code detail at redmond.life, you can save 15% on real salt, on seasonings like the Wasatch seasoning or the Relight electrolyte mix. It's great. Every time you order, you can use the code detail. Same thing on Redmond Hunt. You can buy Trophy Rock supplies there. Save 15% on your order. And then on Raw Rev is a protein bar, different organization, high protein, low sugar. Save 20% on your first order. Awesome bars to have in a stand. So I wanted to talk about my experience this weekend and hunting in an EHD zone, and also talk a little bit about what sort of stages we're in that right now as it relates to the rut. But I couldn't help but bring up my Facebook feed has been just jam-packed with ads from Timber Ninja for the Kunai. It's a hybrid stand, and it's I think about 4 pounds and some ounces. It's about $450. What makes it interesting is that it's a very large platform. It's bigger than even the largest saddle platform, and it's like I said, it comes in at about 4 pounds, really lightweight. It has instead of having like a seat stand and a post to attach it to the tree, it doesn't have a seat or the stand. It has a stability spike that sort of comes out from the bottom. And I was reading some of the comments online. A lot of people were sort of criticizing the platform as it relates to the spike, saying it might not be stable or it'd be difficult to set up, or it might need be legal on public land. It's it really piqued my interest into the hybrid stand category. And what I think I'm going to do is and I was looking at what else is out there within this category. Something that's larger than a traditional saddle platform, but something that is smaller than a hang-on tree stand. So a lot of your hang-on tree stands, even the lightest ones, are like 10, 11, 12 pounds or more. But if you look specifically for something that's a hybrid, you're really looking at something that's 9 pounds or less. Now, this thing came in at a little over 4 pounds, and it's 4 pounds, 10 ounces. It's, I think there is, my initial response was, why is Timber Ninja doing this? Does this fit within their brand vision? Because at first I thought, no, I mean, they were originally one of the first to come out with a carbon climbing stick. Now, I don't feel like their carbon sticks are the best on the market now, but there was a time where those carbon sticks were really innovative. But and I just thought, is this really fit within what a Timber Ninja customer would ideally want from that company? Something that's, a large platform that uh, sits, is sort of niche in a way. And it's much different than, I would say, anything that's out there really, because it doesn't have a seat or the platform post, or I guess it's the post that I would say, the attachment post. But after giving it some thought, there are some other hybrids out there. And so I think what I'll be doing is going through that category in the near future on the Hunt Detail YouTube channel and just sort of breaking down what are sort of the best options. Obviously, I'll be talking about this product, and we'll see. I want to encourage you to check it out. Go to Timber Ninja, go to their site. I have noticed some differences, some changes that I'm pleased with. I think one of which is with their carbon sticks, they now include an attachment method. I thought that was kind of like bogus when they were first selling their sticks, and you had to buy the attachment method separately. I will say that the price of this Kunai is in line with the marketplace, where a lot of the things that they've mentioned are not in line with the marketplace. So hopefully they're starting to be more competitive within the marketplace. I feel like, as I look at it, and I have no affiliation with any of these companies, there's obviously Tethered, and then Arsenal had made a big push from ATA last year, and then Latitude is obviously in the mix, and then you have Trophy Line somewhere in the mix as well, and maybe Cruiser sort of on the outside there. But I've always felt that Timber Ninja just wasn't in the game. And you can see this in some of the videos I've done on platforms or on sticks or whatever. They just seem to be overpriced and not competitive in terms of their features, that sort of thing. So anyways, I encourage you to check it out. I don't have a dog in the fight, nothing negative to say about it, but just noticed it. And it'll be interesting as we get closer to ATA, as we start to see more and more product releases. I imagine Timber Ninja may be at ATA this year. They haven't been there in years past. So maybe this will be something that they bring to ATA and hopefully try to win some innovation award sort of thing. So this weekend, had high hopes for a hunt, going to this particular state, and heard about EHD and heard about it, hitting the state in certain areas. Now, EHD is a virus. It's epizootic hemorrhagic disease, and it's transmitted by biting midges, these little no-see-um gnats. And it really is really tough on deer. And I guess when you have flooding like we had early this spring, and then sort of a drought that happened in the summer, it creates these pools of water where these midges can collect and it limits the limitations of water. Have deer, a lot of deer sort of merging into to those areas. And if you think of areas that maybe don't have a lot of running water, maybe a running creek, that obviously makes things more difficult because you have just standing water, which is perfect for a lot of bugs like mosquitoes, that sort of thing. And so I didn't really think much about it. And we went uh, early that morning. I got up really early. We got set up. I got situated in the area that I wanted to hunt. It was this creek system that where it had several sort of ridges dumping down. It was a blind hunt, but I thought, well, this will be pretty good, based, on just setting up blind. And then it had been raining and it was kind of wet and there was a lot of noise in the wood from water falling from the leaves. And so I got down maybe hours to an hour and a half after sunrise and thought I'm going to just slip through and scout and do another setup. I didn't see any really hot sign around my tree, and so I uh, started covering ground. And I thought, I may even bump deer, but I think I'm going to be okay with that. I want to get set up in an area that I know where the rut is taking place. Maybe I bump some does. Maybe I bump a buck. Maybe I catch a buck before he catches me. Ultimately, I start to cover ground, and I don't see anything for sign. I don't see any rubs. I don't see any scrapes. I know the leaves have been falling, but still, you generally can find scrapes. I did find a couple rubs, but they were old. And I just thought, this is really strange. And so I took my time and I slowly worked my way back to the vehicle where my dad and I had parked. And I knew I was going to have lunch. And this was straight up noon. Got there. It had gotten warmer. And I was like, neither of us had seen anything. And I just was like, see, I don't see any sign. And I didn't see anything that suggested that, that I was in the right spot anywhere. I didn't trump any deer, nothing. And so I went to, we had lunch. I got rehydrated, refreshed. I said, you know what? We drove around a little bit. This is Big Woods Public. We saw a couple trails that were a little bit more, um, stood out more. And I thought, well, I'm going to go into this trail. I'm going to take this trail in. I'm going to walk until I see sign, until I know that this is the place to be, and I want to find a scrape. And so walk in, covering ground, lots of red oaks dropping. I think it was a pin oak dropping acorns. Did find some relatively fresh scat, but, didn't see any scrapes or rubs. Kept going. Get to a point where there's several ridges coming together and I see several trails sort of converging. And this was about 2 o'clock, maybe 2:30. And I thought, you know what? I don't know. I could walk forever. I'm just going to go ahead and set up. I set up, don't see anything. And I got to thinking about the EHD thing, and I started to look it up on the state website, wildlife resource website. And I'll be darned if I find out that looking at the heat map of the reported EHD cases, the county that I'm in is the county with the highest number of reported cases of the entire state. I could have thrown a dart at the state map, and if I would have any county I would have hit. would have been better than the county that we were hunting. And it just was like one of those moments where I'm like, holy smokes, I have wasted an entire day hunting something that doesn't exist. And why I didn't take the time to really understand the how EHD was impacting this particular state. Well, I know why, because in the past, I've never really thought about it that much. I thought, a lot of people use EHD as excuses, or they're just the deer have shifted, they don't really know. And gosh, I just the reason why I share this story and the reason why I'm so transparent, just like I am with other things, like last week's topic when I was talking about the deer that I gut shot and the recovery, which was just a terrible series of mistakes, is I just don't want you to make the same mistake that I did, to waste a full day in an area that is the ground zero for EHD in that particular state. And I mean, there's other factors that play a role into those numbers reporting. I mean, you gotta have people to actually find the deer dead to report the deer. And so, it doesn't mean that the county over didn't have actually more EHD cases, or the county that has the fewest actually has more, because maybe there's just less people tromping through the woods or whatever. There's a lot of dynamics there that at play, but I'm a believer now, and I can tell you I will never ever make that mistake again, and just blindly go to an area without thinking or doing a little bit of research to understand how has EHD impacted the deer herd in this region, in this particular county. Because I can tell you, it was real. The woods was pristine, and it was great. I mean, it had lots of oaks, creek systems, uh, pines, cedars, ridge tops, bottoms, great areas of thick cover, just a really strong habitat. And my dad and I were just like, what the heck happened here? Why are there not deer here? And then we put two and two together, and obviously much too late. So as we look at November 6th through the 10th, and obviously this is dropping on the 11th, according to the Drurys, they came up with the 13 phases of sort of the deer rut. And November 6th through the 10th was deer parade, where all bucks are really on their feet on some level. Now, November 11th through the 15th, they have this as phase 7 as lockdown. And so they do say, you're going to still see deer, but it's likely going to be more small bucks cruising as your more mature bucks are locked down with a particular doe. So those dates are obviously fluid depending on where you are. They're basing this more on the Midwest. They're based out of Kansas, Iowa area. If you're in New York State or in Illinois or in Tennessee, I think that those phases are going to flex a little bit. Or Wisconsin, it's going to be maybe come a little later or maybe a little bit earlier. Personally, I still feel like, yeah, I really don't know, actually. I don't know where we would be as it relates to, where I live and what's happening. I think maybe there is some truth to this being the lockdown phase, at least from the data that I'm capturing from my cameras. Obviously, I didn't see any deer this weekend because I was looking for EHD, but I think it's important to keep it all in perspective. If bucks are in lockdown, then a situation of maybe setting up in the morning and and maybe at 10 o'clock getting down. If the wind is right and it's not extra crispy, crunchy leaves, maybe it's an opportunity to cover ground and try to think of areas where bucks may push does to sort of hold them down, to lock them down. A number of years ago, I think it's almost a decade ago, I was hunting. It was actually November 7th, and I remember being in the stand, and there was this chasing that was going on, but it just kept going on and on and on and on. And I would catch glimpses of these deer, and I was in a stand, and I would like, oh my gosh, I could make out the ear or the nose or the butt or whatever. So I got down at lunchtime, I work my way up this cut cornfield or up this edge. I look in, and there's a buck that is, and this is a big bodied mature buck, and he has got this doe in this bowl. Like, this terrain literally is like a bowl, and he's running around the upper edge of the bowl, keeping her there. She eventually skirts out, but I get back up in my stand for the evening hunt, the same exact stand. She works her way at last light towards my stand, and there he is behind her. I think he's finally a bit tired himself. And then I shoot him, I think, at 30 yards. But that was a situation where that doe was on lockdown with that buck, and they were primarily unaware of what was going on. Like, I obviously was quiet enough to observe them, but they weren't really, it wasn't a situation where they were fully aware and engaged in every little sound, every little snap of a twig or whatever. And so it may be an opportunity to even drive roads if you know areas where bucks will push a doe, maybe into a CRP field, maybe in a patch of woods that's away from the main runway, if you will. But just, I would encourage you to keep that in mind if we truly are entering lockdown. I mean, that day I just got really lucky because I just happened to set up in a stand where that buck had that doe on lockdown. But it was really interesting to observe that. And even when I remember drawing and shooting, he was in zombie mode. Like, I think I could have done a lot of things. I could have got out of the stand, and I'm being a little bit facetious here, but he seemed to be in zombie mode. So it's not all bad if you're not seeing mature bucks. It's just, it may be an opportunity to go find them. But thank you again. Enter the giveaway. Give this podcast a 5 stars. Save some money by using the code DETAIL. And we'll talk again next week.